Welcome to Facet of the Jewel podcast with your host, J.H. the Apostle. Do you remember the Serenity Prayer? My mom had ours hanging up over our kitchen sink when we were coming up. I recall it saying something like, Lord, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Let's talk about it. I don't like to do a lot of preaching on my podcast, but I just love the scriptures. And there's a verse of scripture that harmonizes beautifully, I think, with the Serenity Prayer. I got to share it with you. Matthew, the 18th chapter, the 18th verse. But I need you to read this in the contemporary English version. The way it's worded there is real interesting. The one verse says, I promise you, God in heaven will allow whatever you allow on earth, but God will not allow anything you don't allow. I think that's deep. That's Jesus talking now, the Christ. And it's very interesting to see the connection between God grant us the serenity to accept the things that we can't change. Acceptance, allowance, I think these two words go hand in hand. They speak to our power in the matter. I believe there are so many things that happens in our lives and we don't identify clearly that we are allowing many of these things to happen. I think about a session that I had some time ago on grieving your losses to completion. A real good friend of mine made this statement. You know, bro, grieving losses to completion sounds good, but I don't think I'll ever not miss my son. Here's a mother who lost her son prematurely. And I say prematurely because I personally don't believe it's the divine's design to have our children leave here before we do. But I digress. I want my sister to know, and anybody else that thinks that I was alluding to the fact that there'll come a time where you'll stop missing your loved ones. That's not at all what I'm saying. Grieving your losses to completion, the connection to this session speaks to God granting us or granting you the serenity, the peace, the calmness that comes along, the state of mind that he will give you when you learn to accept the things that you can't change. When I got to a place and I recognized that there was nothing I could do about lifing, there was a sense of empowerment that came upon me. Kind of reminds me of my daughter, Jaya. She was only a little girl, 9 or 10 years old when her brother was murdered. And it's been 13 years now. And just a couple of years ago, she made mention to me that, you know, Daddy, I'm not happy that my big bro, my best friend is gone. She was like, but without trying to sound like she was celebrating, I could see the difficulty in her expressing this point. But she wanted me to understand that she had developed through this process of grief a degree of strength, a degree of power that she knows that she didn't possess prior to her going through this ordeal. This speaks more to what I'm talking about. When you learn to grieve your losses to completion, and even the stages of grief, I think I mentioned that there are roughly 5 stages that are commonly referred to. The first stage is denial. The second stage is anger. The third stage is bargaining. The fourth stage is depression. And the fifth stage, guess what? It's called acceptance. Now, I'm clear that a tragedy happens in your life, you lose a loved one, emotionally, you're not going to just in a linear fashion move through each stage without any hiccups. The truth is, you may even recycle some of those stages before you get to the next stage. But the point that I'm leaving with you today is that I want you to be aware that you can become more intentional about how you move through that process. There is something that you are either allowing or not allowing, something that you are accepting or not accepting. And as the Christ says in Matthew 18:18, I promise you, whatever you allow on earth, God's backing that up. And whatever you don't allow on earth, God is backing that up too. So the power that you possess is in your acceptance. It's in your allowance. Doesn't mean that you're ever going to be pleased with the way life is lifing. Doesn't mean that you have to be in agreement with the results or what the outcome of some of the calamities of life, right? But what it does mean is that you're very intentional to embrace the fact that life is lifing. And just like that serenity prayer, God will grant you a calmness, a sense of being untroubled even and unbothered by the fact that there's nothing that you can do about some things. But guess what? You can accept the courage that he'll give you when something arises that you can do something about. So you need acceptance on both stages. But finally, you need to accept the wisdom that allows you to make a distinction between both what you can do something about and what you can't do anything about. I appreciate you for tuning in to the Facet of the Jewel podcast, where we touched on the Serenity Prayer today. Be encouraged and know that your power is in your allowance. Grace and peace.